Hey guys, welcome back. I'm glad to be here again. My name is Raluca Sandu, and we are here today to discuss about the second chapter of my book, The Purpose of Life and the A.D.A.T Theory, A.D.A.T being awareness, decision, ability, and talent. And the second chapter is called Toxic Attachment, dealing with love addiction and social disorders. Now, before going into today's topic, I want to mention again a little bit about the book and how I started and all these things. The main concept or the main idea of my book, which you can see here, is that I wrote it to pay it forward, right? I went through certain things, I overcame them, let's say, in the best way possible. I'm still fighting my battles, and I still have things to improve as everyone else, but I managed to learn my lessons and to try to let's say, to not get stuck in that mindset of I can do anything and I'm tired and I'm always, so people are against me and all that thing. Because that's a very dangerous place to be. And because most of us are in that place for a long time, or maybe during our whole lives, it can make us feel that the world is against us, which is a foundation for narcissism. And that foundation for narcissism is again very dangerous because we can risk becoming those who hurt us and hurt other people further, which is not a nice thing to do and not a healthy place to be. But enough talking about me, and let's dive into today's chapter. The book has, as I said, around 11 chapters. And today's chapter is the second chapter. As I said earlier, it's about toxic attachments, dealing with love addiction and social disorders. And it says like this. Lately, I have started to pay more attention to people. Beginning with myself, I examine what and who I am at my core. I try to pay attention to what affects others and what people's reactions signify. When you look at individual stories and backgrounds, several social aspects can be easily understood. Through this examination, I've come to find out more and more. Sorry, I'm nervous. I'm messing the second paragraph, messing up the second paragraph. So through this examination, I've come to find out more and understand what emotional addiction really means. I prefer to generalize this concept under the name emotional addiction because, as we'll see further on, love is not the only thing that can cause a social disorder. Now, I called it here emotional addiction. I wrote this book when I was 27, now I'm 31. During all these years, I've come to understand that actually emotional addiction is codependence, but that's another topic for another day. The core concept, let's say, of this chapter is the following, that is also bolded here. I don't know if you can see it, right? It's this little piece on bold. And it says, although we are all at some level attached to our loved ones and the people in our lives, there is a thin line between a healthy relationship and a toxic situation, a line that tends to distort if we don't pay enough attention to ourselves. However, it doesn't just happen from one day to another, but is the result of unhealed emotional wounds from the past. Now, today's let's say coaching environment and psychology field and all that is very how should I say, it's very involved, let's say, or tries to evidence to emphasize a lot on this codependent stuff and toxic traits, and everyone is toxic and how you should avoid those people and all these things. But the thing is, one certain thing is that toxic people are hurt people. And there's that other saying that says that hurt people, you know. Toxic actually means, to put it in words, or to put it in more general words, is something that makes you ill on some level, okay? And going back to that thing I said last time regarding the 5 people that are around you, kind of define your perspective and who you are going to be. And of course, you are going to be mostly like them, like those 5 people around you. If you stay in an environment where those 5 people around you, or 2 or 3, or at least one of them, is making you doubt yourself, is yelling at you, is treating you badly, or in a subtle way, not in a powerful, aggressive manner, but in a subtle way, you show them something you did, or you clean up the place, the house, and they're like, nice job, but you could have done better. And they repeat that concept, that idea. Or if they say, you're such a great guy, or you're such a great person, only if you add whatever you want to add, right? So there's this aggressive type of behavior and emotional wounding that is about yelling, physical aggression, I know, not being able actually to shut up about the other person, right? And telling them a bunch of things daily that messes with their mind. And then there's the other subtle way of harming someone, which is in the small details, in the small things that you say to them, or they say to some people tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not whatever enough, or you name it, right? That there's something wrong with you, that there's something off about you. Because you see, mostly because we are not taught to see or to put limits, or to see the other person for what they are, and with their background, and with whatever problem they have, that the message they are sending is about them, not about you or other people. Because of that, we take it personally and we integrate it, and that's a way codependence and abuse is formed. So that's the main concept with these toxic relationships, and toxic attachment, and toxic whatever you want to add, is that when there are no limits, we take everything that the other person says about ourselves, like it's about ourselves, like it defines us. But it doesn't. The truth is that mostly it doesn't. And I'm saying this before, and then I'm going to go further in the chapter. I'm saying this because, for example, I had a discussion with my mom recently, and I asked her about her childhood, about my grandparents, about my great-grandparents, and it was like a family discussion on that, small family talk. And she used to tell me a little bit about my grandmother, and the fact that she would say to her, so my grandmother would say to my mother when she was little, that your mother never taught you anything, you don't know anything, and you can't do anything, and all those messages that put us down mostly. And you know, we are talking about a woman like my grandmother that was mostly known about being calm and a good person and warm and very soft, and even the dog wouldn't bark her into her, you know, she was very, let's say, not complete, how should I say? I'm missing that word. But she was a very well put and well organized in herself as a person. Okay, and you wouldn't expect that from someone like her, but yet, because maybe she received those words from other people, she expressed them with no real harm intended to my mother. Now, my mother, because she had a difficult childhood also, she integrated those words as being about her. Like when she heard things like, your mother never taught you anything, you can't do anything, you don't know anything, etc. Okay, so guess what messages she sent to me during my life? Exactly the same messages. Again, with no real harm intended, but imagine that we are like jars, okay? We are like empty jars when we are born. And the environment we grow up in actually builds us up, fills us. And based on what we are filled of, or with, based on what we are filled with, that's what we give further. Yeah. So if you have kids, maybe, and you notice yourself screaming or behaving a certain way towards them, I don't have babies or kids, but I was babysitting for some time, and I noticed myself and I caught myself having certain reactions that were actually the reactions my mother had with me. So if we are not aware of these things, it's hard for us to push the brake. And it's hard for us, and then we imagine, okay, why is my kid complaining, or why is my husband, my boyfriend, my best friend, etc., complaining about X, Y, or Z about me? Because that's not true. But then when you look and you put up the mirror in front of you, or they put up the mirror in front of you, you say, okay, well, yeah, but that's how my mom behaves, or that's how my father behaves, or that's how my grandmother behaved if you grew up with your grandparents, which is a lovely thing to happen. But we take in patterns because we need models when we grow up as kids, and those models are the people around us. In the child psychology, they say that the child learns by imitating, and that's perfectly true. But he imitates the model they have in front of them, and that's mom, dad, sister, brother, grandparent, grandmother, grandfather, etc. No, the caregiver, actually, the person that whoever that might be, is around them and focuses on their growth. So that's the whole point. And I know that mostly it's nothing new, but what I wanted to underline is that toxic is not necessarily something to run from, is something to understand and detach from, because environment is key. The people around us and the ones who influence us are key. So let's be careful with that. Okay, so I'm seeing here further in the second chapter that in our close proximity, there are situations that find their root causing inaccessible and protected wounds from early childhood, as I said. These wounds are untreated and unhealed. The causes may vary from social rejection, improper family environments, adding physical and or psychological abuse, as I mentioned, lack of affection or attention, to even being abandoned by the family members. Such factors lead to different attachment styles that can be more or less healthy and can seriously affect our adult life. In the integrative therapy, and that can seriously affect our adult life. Sorry, full point. In the integrative therapy, 100 key points and techniques, Maria Gilbert and Vanya Orlans speak about Bowlby's theory of attachment and how he explains the differences between attachment styles by dividing them into three categories: anxious, avoidant, and a combination of the two, which is the anxious avoidant. These patterns are formed during our childhood due to the type of relationship we have with our parents or caretakers. Practically, they affect our early childhood development. Even if most studies say that these patterns are flexible and can change over time, Bowlby has reinforced the idea that, in fact, they tend to become more stable. While the three different attachment styles are reinforced in the book entitled Attachment Styles by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, we must also mention the fact that it exists another frequent attachment style known as codependency. Yeah, so I even forgot I mentioned codependency here. Yes. So this emotional attachment or emotional addiction is, as I said, that codependency. And I'm going to go further with the chapter. I'm going to go through it. I will jump from paragraph to paragraph. I won't go through all the paragraphs. Okay. So I won't. I don't want this video to be a spoiler. I want you to be curious about the book. Okay. So therefore, codependency comes from open wounds inside us. Growing up and not feeling accepted, listened to, leads to not knowing how to act in relationships with others. The Bible, and in some ways all religions and self-development books, say that we must love others like we love ourselves. Therefore, before learning to love others, we must accept who we are, and there's no doubt that this is the case. So, remember what I said about the jar? Well, loving ourselves is about that jar. We need to learn how to fill our jar by ourselves. And we can only do that once we start to see things and decide to not unsee them ever again. So we can focus on building up our emotional regulation. Because not being okay in relationship with others or not being able to integrate ourselves and who we are, in psychology is called emotional regulation. So what we need as adults with a difficult past is to embrace the concepts of emotional regulation and try to learn as many techniques as possible regarding how to regulate our emotions. And this could be done in a coaching or therapy session. Okay. So I'm jumping to 3 paragraphs. Okay. So going through life in such a way, at some point, often as teenagers, we hit against a wall of negative self-talk that includes words like "you're lazy," "you're slob," "you're good for nothing." At that moment, everything we have been told when we were kids becomes our reality. So see how we integrate the abuse and we think it's our own identity. The voices of our parents, the messages that they've sent us in adolescence becomes our own identity. And then we behave as we were told that we are, okay? And that's how, as adults later on in life, we pass on the same messages because we integrated so well a reality that wasn't ours. And now we're trying to pay it forward in the wrong way. Okay. Okay. So the good news is that not everything is lost when we face certain such challenges. These things can be recovered step by step by learning to offer to yourself what others have denied you. Attention, trust, comprehension. There is no one in this world you can rely on more than your own self. On the other hand, there is also another perspective related to emotional addiction. Therefore, all the aspects mentioned above, sorry for that, guys in the ambulance if they are suffering. Hopefully not, but okay. So on the other hand, there is also another perspective related to emotional addiction. Therefore, all the aspects mentioned above have or tend to have one or more of the following consequences. Once you become an adult, you may encounter one of the following situations. You may always be or feel alone, or you get attached to someone too early. You may always be or feel alone. This may start from the feeling that you don't fit in, you can't adapt to the situation, and you can't find your place in the world. You always feel the need for company and dislike being left alone at home. This happens as a consequence of not trusting yourself enough to feel capable of facing unpredictable situations. This lack of self-trust can affect several aspects of your life, and I leave that to another discussion. So, I'm pronouncing so a lot in this video. What triggered me in a good way while reading this chapter is that it says that a consequence of this form of abuse is not trusting yourself enough to feel capable of facing unpredictable situations. So now, this is what I was talking about when I mentioned emotional regulation, developing the capacity to emotionally regulate. And the concept of isolation, yeah, that's also stuck on my mind. Because we aren't taught to emotionally regulate, and because our true identity somehow fights those thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, like you're not good enough, you're not valuable, you're not worth it, you can do that, you are such a piece of whatever, rotten cake, you know, and say. So because of the fact that our deepest, truest self fights against those intrusive thoughts that we were taught to be actually our identity, but isn't, we are not able to emotionally regulate. We are not capable of being in a good energy, you know, in a good vibe, in a good state of mind, if you want. Because there's always that inner struggle that you're not good enough. Yes, I am, but I want to do that. I want to be better. I want to be, no, you're not good enough. You're never going to make it. You're not, you know, there's that, it's like, I wouldn't call it necessarily a dance, because dance sounds in a more positive way, but that inner struggle and that inner fight with what we know we are and what we know we are capable of deep down, and what they've told us, what we learned from others that we are. And because of that fight, that it can be explained to not being able to regulate emotionally and be balanced, we tend to isolate. Like, okay, if I'm not capable of doing X, Y, or Z, or being social, or being in a good mindset and being a pleasant company to other people and connect with them emotionally, then I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go out. I'm going to avoid those people, that person, the situation, and whatever aspect in life that might be challenging and might be offering us a chance to grow. We are going to avoid it because we don't know how to handle ourselves in that particular situation. And notice that I didn't say how to handle the situation, but how to handle ourselves facing that situation. And that's how we are going to avoid important aspects of our life and important opportunities and challenges, and maybe a situation where we could have fun and be okay, just because we think that we won't be able to manage that situation. Okay. Okay, and another thing regarding the, oh yes, about connecting with others in social situations. You know, I've also been in certain social environments, certain situations where they would tell me, you're not connected to the group. We don't feel connected to us. And the point is here that when we weren't taught to connect with ourselves, with other people, like, and the main character of connection in our life, in a child's life, is their parents, and especially their mother. When we weren't able to connect emotionally to our mother, we won't be able to connect emotionally with us and then with the world. So that's why there's this confusion sometimes, because some people say, okay, I'm an empath. I feel people. No, you feel trauma. You feel wounded people, and you bond with trauma, with their trauma, because it's the only energy you can identify with. That's the difference between being an empath, that is like warm and okay with people and can connect with them generally, and the difference with trauma, when it comes to trauma bonding. Okay, so a source or capacity to trauma bond can be connected and can be transferred and transformed into empathy. But first we have to acknowledge it in us. And first we have to heal a little bit or a little bit more and become present with the others, and then connect with them and look like we're interesting, at least look like we're interested and present and there for other people that are less traumatized, or that have or had their issues, but different issues than ours. So because we all have certain struggles and fights and inner fights, but it's all about how we carry them. Okay, so that's the whole point with codependency and trauma and emotional neglect and the incapacity to connect with other people. It's all because we didn't learn to connect with our parents or with our main caregivers. And because of that, we cannot connect with ourselves, and then we cannot connect with the world. As far as I know, the mother image is associated with the relationships and the relationship with the world, and the image of the world that you have, and the image that you have about yourself. So that's a huge trigger point and a huge starting point also, if you want to start acknowledging some things you went through. Okay, and maybe start a therapy or coaching process. Okay, you get attached to someone too early. And I'm saying here, as far as I'm concerned, this may happen for one or both of the following reasons. It is possible that a parent wasn't present in your life, as I said. Even if they were, they may have been emotionally absent. This trauma leaves an empty space inside that we struggle to fill to our future relationships, whether romantic or not. The biggest problem here is that when you're emotionally depending on someone, it's possible that you don't even notice until the point when that person is no longer close to you. Basically, your basic source and daily dose of attention, affection, and trust have suddenly been taken away and will no longer be at your disposal. So another thing is with this codependency is that our jar is empty. And when our jar is empty, we will always seek validation from others. We will always seek for others to be there for us, to support us, to make us feel better. And don't get me wrong, we are human beings. We need support. We need a network of support. We need healthy friendships and family that will support our dreams and our perspectives in lives. But dreams and perspectives are a sector, you know, this is a sector department of our life. The fact of not being able to stay with your own self, by yourself, alone, in a room, to go by yourself at a certain event, to eat alone maybe at times, to just do things by yourself, be emotionally independent, let's say, but without the desperate need of calling someone, of texting them always, of controlling them, or being insecure about where they were, what they did with who, how many times, why didn't they call you, and all these things. You know, it's I think I kind of forgot a little bit my idea, but you get the point. So having people to support us is a good thing, but having people that would constantly be there for us 24/7 is impossible, and it's not a healthy mindset to be or to start the day with, because there is this other saying that a person actually is born alone, lives alone, and dies alone. And this means that, yes, we are social people, socially connected, let's say. We need people, we need community, we need to be in touch with one another. But the truth is that our everyday battles, lessons, dreams, hopes, those things that makes us us and defines who we are and our tribe, our path in life, those are only for ourselves. Those things are, let's say, reserved for only for ourselves, only for who we are, only for our everyday life. Because if we don't learn that, we will always seek to, I don't know, have someone there, call someone, text someone, be always in touch with someone, attach ourselves to someone else's journey. And that's not the point. If we do that, we miss everything that we learn. We have to learn for ourselves. And that's a very dangerous place to be honest. So moving forward, in the same aspect of or context of codependency, you may also feel a lack of energy and willpower to actually do something every day. So the thing is that when you are in a codependent relationship, or when you are in an environment that doesn't contribute to your emotional health, you lack energy. You're not willing to do things for yourself, and you're not willing to, as I said earlier, to live your own life, to discover your own lessons, to do your own traveling, to like connect, with your own self, to learn how to connect with your own self, and to learn how to emotionally regulate. Because here's the thing: as I said before, or maybe in the other video, we aren't taught, unfortunately, to do that, and there are very few cases where people know how to do that by default. It's all this aspect of emotional intelligence, which actually is the fact of learning how to regulate emotionally, is a life process. It's not something that you press a button and you have it all done and all figured out. It's a process, okay? So embrace that process, be brave, and do whatever is necessary to make you feel better. And on the long run, not only in the moment. So the next thing is that you would do everything to bring those memories back into the present. Now, another aspect of codependency is that there's this tendency to live in the past. Even if you don't have someone, or you're not connected physically with that person in your life, you are still connected emotionally, and you think of them, you imagine things, you project things that are not even real, or you go back in past memories and you tell people or friends, or you talk about that person as if that person is still in your present and is still in your life and part of your everyday activities. So this, we need to be very careful with this. From my own experience, I had situations where I was fully immersed, let's say, in the past, and talking about that person that, as I said earlier, as they were still here in my present, which was not the case. But this happens mostly because we don't fill our jar. We do not put intentionally new activities in our everyday life. We don't go out to meet people. We don't build projects. We don't read. We don't go to events. We don't see the meaning of doing things because we're stuck mentally in the past and living in a fantasy world where that person still lives in our mind, which is not the case, of course. And that's why building up our independency or our independence, sorry, emotionally and physically, so from the inside out, if we can say it like that, is very important. It's highly important, because only building a life and creating new memories, you can detach from the old ones that are not a part from of your life anymore. Okay. Okay. So I will read the last paragraph here. So it's a longer chapter. I don't know. Second. Let's see. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages and a half is the second chapter. Okay, so the last paragraph here says this. All in all, love, whether it's romantic or not, and emotional addiction are complex concepts to cover in a few words. And the only way the only way someone can heal is through the development of self-esteem and the acceptance of who and what they are at their core. It is important to learn that if we don't care about ourselves, no one will. And no one will be able to fill that empty jar simply because we feel they have stared at us for a little while. They will leave at some point, just because we all have our own path in life. And if today we find ourselves on one route and meet someone tomorrow, we may change that route and meet someone else. All with, if today we find ourselves on one route and meet someone, tomorrow we may change that route and meet someone else, all with the aim to learn from each other for personal and spiritual growth. If you place all your hopes into one single person, what will you have left when they leave? The end. So, yeah, what will you have if in the end they leave? You have to have yourself, mainly. Okay, you have to have yourself, and having yourself is learning how to emotionally regulate and be balanced, which is a process that can be obtained in 1 or 2 years or more. It depends on what personal rhythm each one of us has, and it can be done through coaching, therapy, or spiritual practice, whatever suits you, but just do it and make yourself better, because it's our responsibility to heal and be okay with ourselves, to not pay forward the wounds and not create more wounds in other people. Okay? So this is the book, The Purpose of Life and the A.D.A.T Theory, Awareness, Decision, Ability, and Talent. Okay? How to overcome your circumstances through art. We will get to that part in the following videos. I will put the links in the description. You can get the book in a hardcover version like this one, and you can also get the book in a Kindle version. Okay, thank you for watching, and stay safe. Bye.